Roundtable Massacre shirts available now for $17.
Check the pinned comment or follow the link in the description.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to... Technically, this is the first legitimate Roundtable Massacre. We finally got a name for the show, which I think is perfect. This is a Southern promotion, right? We are
Right.
Texas Chainsaw fans. It just makes sense. Today is probably my most anticipated episode. This is really special. We finally got to sit down and watch a Blu-ray copy of the movie that has eluded me for years. Kaylin, I think you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy, you've seen this movie before.
A low-quality version.
A low-quality version. So, Fright Night 2. But before we get into Fright Night 2, I'd be remiss not to just... A quick word from each of us on the first film, Fright Night. Fright Night, I think, is my favorite vampire movie, period. I love it. There's others like Vamp that I love. But Fright Night is... It's classic. It's absolute classic horror. Chris Sarandon is one of my favorite actors. And the director for Fright Night is great, Tom Holland. Child's Play. It's just, there's nothing wrong with that movie. It's so entertaining. Rewatch is through the roof.
Between that and Lost Boys, as far as my favorite vampire movie from that era. But yeah, it's one of those you can watch anytime. It never ever gets old. Great cast, great effects. Just everything about it is amazing.
Fun movie, fun effects. Go watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Fright Night, I mean, it's probably in every horror movies you should watch book. It's in every one.
Right.
But Fright Night 2, it was years before I even realized there was a Fright Night 2, much less that I hadn't seen it. Like, I loved Fright Night for years, and then finally I learned there was a part 2. Tommy, when did you know? When were you aware that there was a part 2?
Well, actually, I first knew not long after I finally saw the first one. And we had a local video store here, and I would always see Fright Night 2 in the store on VHS. And I never rented it because I had never heard of it being in theaters or anything like. So I was like, "Oh, this is a direct to VHS turd, basically." So I just never checked it out, and I kind of forgot about it. And then I kind of ran across stories about it later on in the past maybe 10 years, and was finally able to watch, like I said, a very low quality copy.
When did you know Fright Night 2 existed?
Only through the poster. It's such a recognizable poster, seeing it, but I had never seen the movie until...
But, so you saw, it was the same thing, video store, you saw it on the shelf, so
Yeah.
You've been aware of it.
It was on my radar, but I never got an opportunity to see the movie. I guess it was there in the rental store. I just never picked it up, and then it was gone and never thought about it.
It just left everybody's memory, it seemed. But no
Right.
No buzz about Fright Night 2.
I can't remember it.
Yeah, no.
And does that, and looking back on that, guys, does it make sense? Because Fright Night was a hit.
I think it had a larger release overseas than it did here. I'm not really sure about the reasons. I mean, there are reasoning about later on kind of what happened. But as far as the initial theatrical release, I think it was released overseas more so. I think it was pushed more so overseas than it was here in places like Australia and things like that.
Right.
And maybe I just don't remember seeing the trailers or anything. We lived in a town that had a movie theater with 2 screens, so you didn't get many movies. Maybe it just kind of passed me by and I just don't remember it, but I really do not remember seeing a trailer or anything until I saw that the VHS in the rental store.
I wonder if when did it come out? The second one,
1988.
88. So
Yeah.
I wonder that being kind of a popular time, a lot of really great horror movies. If it just got buried,
It's possible.
So it was definitely a stacked year. It's a very big sequel year, which, on the contrary, would make you think Fright Night 2 would be a big hit. But who knows? I don't know the box office. I don't know the history. There's a lot of mystery
Right.
with Fright Night 2. And we're going to talk about why this film may be so hard to get later. But we're going to actually talk about this film. Kaylin, Fright Night 2. And I'm just going to say it. How much fun was Fright Night 2?
it was a blast. And you had a copy, so we all watched it together.
But then the first 5 minutes hit with this movie. Safe to say that you knew you were in for a good ride.
Right, yeah. If we're just basing it on the initial first thoughts, I thought it picked up very well from the first movie. The transition from what happened at the end of Fright Night to the story where it picks up on Fright Night 2 it was a smooth, believable transition.
Yeah.
And as horror fans, we like that. Oftentimes you see sequels, Tommy, that just, it's like Leprechaun 2, for instance. It has nothing to do with the
Disconnected.
first one. Why? There's fans of that movie. That's what I loved about Fright Night 2, was it told the story. And Tommy, the characters. How many returning
Right,
characters?
that's what I was gonna say. I mean, I assumed, talking about thinking it was low quality, production wise. I was like, well, it must not have any of the same cast or crew, but it had your two main protagonists were back. I mean, and it continued the story from the first one in certain ways with certain characters, and yeah. So I mean, it was just an awesome film cast wise.
And the vampire killer's name is Peter Vincent, right?
Right.
And he's like the Sam Loomis of Fright Night in a sense. He's like that old guy that we want to see him succeed and get ahead. The thing about sequels that I like, and this is a weird thing to say, and I don't really know how else to put it. It's like, I don't need the sequel to try to be better or just try to improve the first film. First of all, improving Fright Night is like climbing a mountain that just you can't ever see the top. It just keeps going up. It's impossible. But Fright Night 2 seemed to just up the ante in everything. More vampires, more threat, more just crazy characters. And Tommy, you let us know about a famous TV icon in low-budget movies that goes by the name of Uncle Rico, who is in this movie.
Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite was in this movie. And like we said, this came out in 88, and he was grown, and already half of his hair was gone. So that should tell you how old Uncle Rico is. I don't know what the actor's name is. I can't think of it, but yeah.
It's Uncle Rico. Everybody's seen Napoleon Dynamite. And that's bizarre because Uncle Rico... He looked good in Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
He was in shape. He was ready to play some football.
Exactly.
I mean, as we know. The characters in Fright Night 2 are so fun. There's this legion of... I don't know that vampires is the correct word, because what was Uncle Rico in the movie? We were talking about that. Caitlin, was he a wolf? What was he? It was kind of like you didn't know.
Caitlin had a good point, though, about why we determined that it was a werewolf.
Well, at the end, if you remember, Alex, she shoves roses in his mouth, and he has a real negative reaction, and that's a thing that werewolves supposedly they don't like roses.
So we have Uncle Rico in this movie, and there's a great character. This guy, I love it when he's in any movie. His name slips me, but if you've seen Joe Dirt, he is Buffalo Bob. He was also Shao Kahn in the horrible
He's been in so many cheap martial arts movies.
Okay, so he is like what? Is he like the liaison to these?
That's what I kind of think. I'm trying to remember now if they ever say, but I think he's kind of like the guy, like the kind of familiar. Is that what they call it? Who kind of takes care of business for the vampires during the day and kind of protects them and things like that. But he also ate moths.
He was. Did he have the reoccurring line of, "Did you kill him?"
Yeah.
Okay.
He was the manager that ate moths. Who is just he's a creepy looking human being. He's got like this skull. Great. He's just great in movies. Whether it's a good or a bad movie, as long as he's in it, those scenes are at least
we called him
good.
Buffalo Bob throughout.
Buffalo Bob. I mean, the cast for this movie was just fantastic. And then the girlfriend for the main character, it's not the same girl from the first movie. He has a new girlfriend in this one. She was fine. I had no issues with her.
She's been in a few different things. I think a lot of people would recognize her if they saw it. Yeah, I think she was in My Boyfriend's Back.
So our main vampire in this movie is a femme fatale, so to speak, Regine, and I thought she was amazing. I mean, I just thought it was a perfect dynamic for this movie to give it its own flavor, its own personality. Kaylin, your thoughts on Regine?
I think she was an important character to introduce because she was the sister of the vampire in the first movie.
Right.
Another thing, like you said, because it connected perfectly.
Seamlessly. It's the whole reason why they came back to avenge the death of the vampire from the first movie.
Chris Sarandon, and if Chris Sarandon was my relative and I was a vampire too, I surely would try to help my brother.
But I think she was beautiful, of course, very very sexy. Also maybe rich. I remember whenever they first show up, she's in a limousine.
Oh, she was buying name brand cereal.
Well, hey, if you got money in savings for thousands of years, you're gonna pick up some pretty nice interest, probably.
Yeah.
And the way that she was trying to get revenge. It wasn't just like, I'm gonna kill you. It was a unique. I don't want to give it away if anybody hasn't seen it, but it was a unique way. It wasn't just like, I'm gonna kill you. It was, you know, it was something different than that.
It was.
Really cool
it was
too.
very. She was extremely sensual. Every time she was on screen, she commands your attention. Great performance from her, and yeah, I mean, she was perfect. The story for Fright Night 2 was perfect. I absolutely loved the crew of vampires. It was, you had your funny ones like Buffalo Bob wasn't really supposed to be funny, but he made me laugh, and of course Uncle Rico. He
yeah.
was a hoot every time he was on screen.
And I'm not even trying to say this like as a joke, but the thing I love about 80s horror is there is a vampire that roller skates. And you don't say, this is dumb, this is corny. It fits. And only in an 80s movie could something like that fit and make sense and not be looked at as corny. In my opinion, anyway. I really thought it was the shots, the slow motion shots of the character roller skating, you know, down the hallways and stuff. It was pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome cinematography in those shots.
Totally agree. And that was the first kill where the really attractive man, woman, ambiguously...
amazing in the movie. He was probably my second favorite character from the movie. And I remember this girl is at school, and she's by the outside where they had the lockers and stuff.
Right. Bent down, doing
and you
something.
see this vampire start rollerblading, and I could tell. I looked over at Kaylin, and we were mesmerized because, like Tommy said, like reading a script in 2020,
right?
Vampire rollerblades sensually towards victim, like anybody would say, get out of here.
Yeah.
But in 1988. It was amazing. I mean, my jaw dropped because the cinematography, and it was slow motion.
And it had like these flowing, like I don't know if it was like scarves or whatever it was that were flowing off of. It was awesome.
It was like Prince as a vampire, which sounds amazing, right?
Yeah.
Kaylin, my favorite shot of the movie.
It's so good.
If you can't tell, we really loved the movie.
And
So
special effects. We talk about
absolutely
all practical, if I'm not mistaken.
You're
talking about late 80s, so yeah.
And they didn't hold anything back.
No.
I remember at one point there's some, maybe one of the vampires gets sprayed with something, and the practical effect is through the throat, and it's just this gratuitous just pouring of whatever liquid it was.
It was just over the top, blood, guts. This my favorite thing about sequels, and I think Fright Night 2 does it perfectly. It's like you watch the first movie, and then like the producers say, "Okay, let's make Fright Night 2 bigger, better, better."
Yeah,
and they just they go for it.
Hold my beer.
I'm trying to think of the special effects in the first one. Of course, you had when he transforms into the bat, and that creature and everything, and the times when he transforms. But I'm trying to think of any other big special effects shots in the first one, but because there were a good bit in this one.
This was full of them.
Yeah. People will ask me, or have asked me over the years, "Oh man, have you seen Fright Night 2?" And I'd be like, "No." You know what? And I'll say, "You know what's ridiculous? I have a Australian original poster in my wall that I've gotten easier than seeing the movie. And now, as you can see, I've got this whole new appreciation for the poster. So I had to set it up right here in the mainstay."
Speaking of, is that Australian VHS?
Yes, that's the Australian VHS right there, guys, of Fright Night 2, which can't play because I didn't realize that PAL and NTSC was a thing for VHS yet.
Well, people who are watching this and they haven't seen it, but they want to see it, how can you get your hands on a Blu-ray copy?
Tommy, tell him, because you're the one that told me about it.
I just happened to... I searched Google for Fright Night Part 2 Blu-ray, expecting... Because I know there are copies out there that are extremely rare and expensive. I think there was a small Blu-ray run, or it may just be DVD. I can't even remember. But I happened to find that on Walmart.com of all places. It's the Spanish version. It was I can't remember the price.
$23.99.
Yeah, which I mean, if you know anything about this, you know that is an awesome deal.
Yeah, $23.99, free shipping, and Tommy, it's shipped from Philly. It's not even like it's shipped from Mexico or anything. It's shipped from Philly.
And you got it in, 2 days?
It was quick, guys. Boom. Free shipping. They sent it right away. Always low prices, always. And that Walmart's
Yeah.
and that Walmart's thing.
Just be ready to switch it from Spanish to
Right.
English if you don't speak Spanish. 'Cause
And guys, I don't have to say it. You guys tell them. Picture quality.
Oh, it was
Excellent.
excellent. Yeah.
I mean, it was great. It was Blu-ray. The audio was
it
fantastic.
looked good. It sounded even better.
Oh yeah, we had the sound bar going, and we had the living room nice and dark. We were at the movie theater basically, right?
Right.
So all in all, guys, final thoughts on a scale of 1 to 10. Kalen, Fright Night 2.
I give it a high 8.5. My expectations were not super high. It was a movie that I've been wanting to see ever since. Ever since I saw the poster of it, when in the movie rental store. Practical effects were fun. The plot line was great. It really just flows well from watching the first movie. You can just watch this movie right after the first movie and feel like it's just all cohesive and it makes sense. Great characters. 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up.
Would watch it again.
Tommy, Fright Night 2.
Hey, I go around to 8.5. I wish I could have seen this as a kid. Because as horror fans, we can become a little cynical and it become a lot more difficult to impress us. I was still impressed by the film, but I know if I would have seen this as a kid, it would definitely be in my top favorites of all time as far as horror goes. So, yeah, I'll go 8.5. That's probably just a little bit under the original, but I think that's because the original is such a classic, But, yeah. Great movie.
And same for me. I'd say 8.5 out of 10. Fright Night is a classic horror movie, period, that was made in the 1980s. Fright Night 2 is an 80s classic,
Right.
in a sense. You know what I mean? It's a very timepiece, which, granted, you could say Fright Night, the one is as well, but Fright Night, it kind of breaks through that barrier of being just known as an 80s movie. It's just a classic movie. But I don't mean that as a knock. Fright Night 2 is an 80s classic. You feel it. It oozes 1980s. It's pouring out of the screen.
Yeah.
But in the best way. I'm so sad that it took me this long to see this movie, but I'm thrilled that I got to experience it in high definition, in great picture quality and great audio quality, and now it is clearly going to be a heavy rotation horror movie in the Hanna House of Horror. So I know we all highly recommend getting Fright Night 2. We vouched for the Spanish Blu-ray you can get for Walmart.com. That'll also be in the pinned comment along with the new Roundtable Massacre t-shirts. So hopefully we'll see you guys rocking those soon. Before we go, I'd be remiss if we don't talk about why we think this movie is so hard to get. Tommy, I know you have an idea.
I know there was a lot of craziness with the movie. The production company that put out the movie originally, they were sold either right around the same time or right after. There were some things with the was Melendez brothers. Is that what they're called?
Melendez or Menendez, but
Menendez,
yeah,
yeah.
we're in the ballpark.
They're, the 2 brothers who killed their parents. Their father that they murdered, he was somehow part of the... it's a lot. If you go on Google, you can read this stuff.
You can get down a rabbit hole with it.
And I think it's just kind of one of those things where I don't know if different companies have held the rights, and it's one of those things where nobody is able to get it and put it out. But I know that some of that stuff has something to do with, kind of why you haven't seen much of it in the United States.
All the more reason to watch this movie.
Regardless, guys, you can get this movie, and it'll play in American players. It's A, B, and C. So I don't know whoever Region D is, Tommy. They got to be across the pond from us, but I don't know what to tell you.
Sorry.
So that's it, guys, for another Roundtable Massacre. This is Christian, Tommy, and Caitlin. Watch Fright Night 2, and we will see you guys next time.